I'm Janice Fiamengo at the University of Ottawa. My theme today is Feminist Rot at Ryerson University in Toronto. I wasn't surprised to learn that after refusing club status to the Ryerson Men's Issues Awareness Society in October 2015, the Ryerson Student Union rejected the club's final appeal in late January of 2016, thus denying the club access to funds and the capacity to rent rooms on campus that official clubs have. In response to the club's defeat, Alison Rogers, co-founder of the Ryerson Feminist Collective, which had launched a petition and a campaign opposing the group, was reportedly, quote, relieved. And she commended what she called, quote, a really good decision for women on campus. Well, I doubt it was felt to be a good decision for the women who are part of the Men's Issues Awareness Society, or for women like me, obviously, who advocate for men's rights to form such societies. But I guess it was good for Alison and for anyone who enjoys seeing men's groups given a hard time. So bully for them. The Ryerson Student Union has not offered an explanation to club president Kevin Arriola, but I think we can make a pretty good guess what would be said. There's a standard script in this oft-repeated drama that goes something like this. A men's group tries to form on a university campus, and feminist students immediately launch a protest, alleging the group will make the campus unsafe because it supposedly promotes violence against women. No evidence provided, just assertions of women's fear. The student union then informs the group that it's concerned by the group's connections with so-called hate groups, a designation they create out of thin air. The union also worries about the group's inability to guarantee that its meetings will not turn into hate gatherings, and by its failure to embrace feminist ideas about male power and diverse forms of oppression. In response, club organizers attempt to defend their group by pointing to the diversity of their membership and their declared commitment to equality. The fact that the Men's Issues Society wants to focus on such matters as men's depression, suicide, homelessness, and inequitable treatment under the law, all fully documented problems, well, that's no help to them. In fact, they have to argue for the legitimacy of a male-centered approach to those issues before a board of governors, at least one of whom in the Ryerson case is on record as stating that feminist groups already deal more than adequately with the problems of men. It's a pretty good game the feminists play, convincing themselves and their friends that they should have the power to ban a men's group while still getting to claim that they're the innocent, powerless victims, effectively silencing male and female voices while making the claim with a straight face that it's men's groups that, quote, attempt to silence others. The feminists, both on and off the union board, who oppose the men's club are never asked to prove their commitment to equality. And of course, they don't have a commitment to equality or even any shame, it seems, in organizing against a group of their fellow students who want to prevent men from killing themselves. If their arguments were used against any other group on campus, they'd be widely condemned for their blatant bigotry. But such is the sanctioned misandry of the intersectional feminist world that these people feel confident bringing forward a mishmash of made-up allegations, fantastical scenarios, and theoretical gobbledygook. Alison Rogers of Ryerson's Feminist Collective claimed that the Ryerson's men's group's affiliation with the Canadian Association for Equality, which is a registered charity, somehow made women afraid to come onto campus, which, if true, is sad, certainly, but not a rational basis for opposing the club. Taking another angle, Carolyn Myers, the equity correspondent for the Student Union, expressed concern that the group's discussions might harm someone who heard them. This is what she said. When there are women who are attending these spaces because they want to see what's being talked about, how will you ensure that there are no voices that are targeting or oppressing anyone else? Well, it's true, there is no way to ensure that someone won't feel oppressed by a challenging idea. And it's incredible that anyone involved with a university could make such a statement and be taken half seriously. Both Alison Rogers and Rabia Idris, the student union's vice president equity, trotted out some nearly incomprehensible jargon about the men's group's philosophical framework. The vice president equity, for example, declared that the club's egalitarianism failed to meet the student union's intersectionality mandate, explaining that, quote, you cannot be egalitarian and intersectional at the same time, because to be intersectional, you've got to have more of an equity focus where you kind of look at a person's specific need rather than giving the same thing to everyone else. Ouch. Rogers made a similar, if somewhat less garbled, observation, noting that, quote, if you're operating from an egalitarian framework, there's no way you're acknowledging privilege. Well, here's the heart of the matter: the refusal of this men's group to think correctly on the central feminist tenet of male privilege. The arguments are ludicrous, because there is no reasonable argument for why a group of students wanting to address what has been called the silent epidemic of male suicide is just one example, why that group shouldn't be allowed. And it is despicable that there are students on the Ryerson campus who would organize against such a club, and that the student union would cater to their ugly prejudice. Aside from the complete irrationality and crudeness of their arguments, I am struck by the arrogance of these women who nominate themselves experts in male experience, telling men what they can and cannot feel or know about being male. Their various comments about intersectionality and privilege amount to a declaration that men can talk about their lives with other men and women only if they first confess that men have had it way too good for too long, and that as men, they are party to the oppression of women and others. All discussion of their feelings and circumstances has to be conditioned by their guilt. So in other words, if these men want to explore why it is that so many young men in North America feel disliked by their society, feel ashamed for being born male, they can do so only if they first accept that they should feel ashamed because they are eminently dislikable. The Ryerson Feminist Collective has a white ribbon campaign to educate about violence against women, and they graciously extend their concern to men also. Alison Rogers explains on her blog, as part of her discussion of why the Men's Issues Awareness Society doesn't deserve club status, quote, the White Ribbon Campaign does an excellent job talking about men's issues. It's done within a framework that recognizes the privilege of being a man and that harmful ideas of manhood can lead to violence against women. Well, that's nice, isn't it? It's awful to be a man, Rogers admits, because, let's face it, men are awful. The feminists make an implicit promise to men. If you give up everything, your rights to freedom of association and expression, supposedly guaranteed in the Canadian Charter, your right to equality before the law and due process, but especially your right to any shred of dignity or pride in your maleness. And if you concede to the feminists just how disgusting you are as a group and just how superior women are, how much more worthy of love and compassion and understanding, how much more deserving of a voice, if you do all that, they might allow you a little sliver of sympathy. It won't be much, you understand, because their main focus has to be on all the victims you've created and all the damage and suffering you've caused as men. But they'll let you join in solidarity to hate who you are and all you've supposedly done wrong as men. So if you accept all feminist claims, no matter how mythical and self-serving, if you promise never to question a feminist statistic or a rape survivor's story, if you're willing always to acknowledge that your pain is less than that of real victims, and if you grovel before feminists in humble submission, they might give you human status as a feminist ally. You'll never have full rights to speak or to have an independent opinion, of course, and you'll always have to apologize for your maleness. But they'll let you have your club, and if you're really good, they might even stop claiming that your group consists of rape apologists and oppressors. So forget it. It's better to be rejected outright than to constantly have to try to pass their feminist purity tests. In fact, though, things aren't all rosy for feminist activists on campus. On December 1st, 2015, the Ryerson Feminist Collective held a rally to reclaim Ryerson University as a, quote, safe space. Kevin Arriola, the president of the Men's Issues Awareness Society, stopped by to listen to the speakers, and both Rabia Idris and Allison Rogers expressed their discomfort at seeing him there. Idris mentioned in interview that his very presence, note that, his presence alone, made the space, quote, unsafe for some students. He didn't even have to say anything. And Rogers, though not frightened by him as an individual, said she was made to feel, quote, concerned and, quote, unsafe when she saw him in his capacity as organizer of the men's group, I guess. This is the difficulty. When you begin to think about making Ryerson University safe, you have to confront the unsettling fact that Kevin Arriola and others like him, maybe even some less accommodating than Kevin, are still on campus. One or two might even turn up at some of your events or in one of your classes or walk by you in the hall. He or she might be heard to say something anti-feminist, and in that moment there might not be enough feminist muscle around to silence the words before they were spoken. So simply to deny club status to the Men's Issues Awareness Society doesn't guarantee protection for feminist feelings. I'm sure campus feminists are fully aware of this and have discussed the need for further measures. I wonder if they've considered perhaps screening every applicant to Ryerson for non-feminist thoughts. Maybe a lie detector test could be administered to discover failures to recognize male privilege. Even that measure doesn't go quite far enough because a student might come into Ryerson with no incorrect opinions and then develop some through the course of his or her time there, so the screening measures might need to be extended. Perhaps there could be semi-annual tests for ideological orthodoxy. And I suspect that either one of Rabia Idris or Allison Rogers would be more than happy to pioneer and oversee such a system of protective measures. And then there's the outside world, which is even more problematic and threatening, and where a whole raft of similar thought control measures should be implemented. I have a feeling that such people are just getting started in making the world safe for feminist feelings, one safe space at a time. They may want to work on their language skills a bit, though, first. Just saying.